So what is protein anyway? Experts agree that it's absolutely possible, and in fact, it can be rather easy to get enough protein without consuming animal products. What's important is that you are intentional with your eating, especially in the beginning of your journey, and pretty soon it's going to become routine. So let's get into what protein is not, first of all. So when speaking with clients and with customers, when I was working at Goodness Meat, I found that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what protein actually is. So I want to clear that up. So protein is not a food group. Sometimes people will say, oh, well, I need to get my protein, or, this meal needs a protein, as if it's a food group. It's not synonymous with meat. And it's not a magical muscle builder. Just eating a lot of protein is not going to magically put on muscle. Just ask anybody who's trying to build muscle and they'll tell you that. You can consume all the protein powder that you want, but if you're not doing the work to strengthen and challenge your muscles, you're not going to build muscle. So protein is not a magical muscle builder. So let's talk about what is it? Well, chemically speaking, a protein is a string of amino acids that are folded into a three-dimensional shape. Amino acids are molecules composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and nine of these amino acids are considered essential. And this means our body can't make them. They must be obtained from food. So you can think of it, the analogy I like to use is sort of beads on a string. So imagine you had a whole bunch of beads strung on a string and then folded into a three-dimensional shape. That's a protein. When our body digests a protein, digestive enzymes snip apart that tangled necklace into smaller pieces, and then all those little beads get pulled off. And basically they end up going into a big pool, or you can imagine putting all the beads into a big bowl, all mixed up. And then when our body needs a protein for a specific purpose, then we start stringing together those beads, those amino acids, and then folding them into a three-dimensional shape. And that shape determines the function of that protein. So we use those amino acids to make new proteins. It's not that we eat a protein and then we take that protein and it becomes something else. It gets completely broken down, and then our body builds new proteins. Every plant and animal food contains protein, and so does our body. And all amino acids originally came from plants. Yes, our body can put together certain amino acids, but generally, when we're consuming foods from an animal that come from an animal, usually as humans, we usually consume herbivores anyways. And where were they getting their protein? Well, they were getting it from plants, right? So that's what a protein is. It's nothing mysterious. It's pretty incredible, but that's what it is. So, okay, if that's protein, why do we need it? Well, proteins are used in every function in the body. They provide structure, they make up muscle and bone, they form enzymes, antibodies, hormones, hemoglobin, and lots of other things. So who's heard of proteins referred to as complete or incomplete, or major versus minor? What does this even mean? Well, as I said, our body needs certain amino acids, right? Essential ones that we must get from food that we can't make ourselves. And we need a particular mix of amino acids. Some plant foods have a little less of certain ones than others. Different plants have a different proportion of essential amino acids. So grains, for example, have a limited amount of lysine. And this protein combining myth came about, I think it was in the 1970s, maybe 1960s, in a book by Francis Moore Lappé called Diet for a New Planet. And it was a groundbreaking book and had a lot of amazing information in it, very useful and new information. But one of the things that she proposed in that book is that to ensure that we get the right mix of amino acids, we need to make sure that we're combining our protein. For example, she was saying eating legumes with grains to make up the full amino acid profile. She wasn't completely wrong, but she wasn't right either. And subsequent to publishing the book, she realized her error, and then she spent many years afterwards trying to correct everybody's misconception that you need to have legumes and grains in a meal to get a complete protein. That idea is, it's not true, because our body, as I said before, pools amino acids. So as long as we're eating enough variety, a sufficient variety of foods, and it doesn't have to be like a crazy variety, and we're eating enough calories to maintain our lean muscle mass or our lean body mass, right? Bones and ligaments and muscles and organs and all of that stuff. If we're eating enough calories to maintain that, and we're eating a decent variety of whole foods, we will get enough protein. So the protein combining myth is that. It is a myth. So hopefully that helps. That's certainly a misconception that I come up against a lot. This idea has been around for a very long time. And well-meaning individuals, friends, family, healthcare professionals sometimes may tell you that, oh, you have to combine your proteins to make sure you're getting enough protein. And that's not true. You just need to eat enough calories and have a sufficient variety of whole foods. So hopefully that's clear. As I said at the beginning, if you have questions as we go through, please feel free to post them in the chat. And if they're relevant to what I'm talking about right now and I have the time, I'll answer them right away. Otherwise, I'll save them to the end. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. So when we consume amino acids that come from plants, one could say that we get them in perfect packaging, because in that package that contains the protein that's coming from a plant, we also get, so gift with purchase, right? We get vitamins, minerals, fiber, phytonutrients, antioxidants, all these amazing and wonderful and valuable things for our body we get at the same time as we get protein when we get it from a plant. So huge bonus, lots of great things that we're getting as well as getting the protein. What we're not getting is heme iron, which has been associated with increased risk of certain cancers and other diseases. We're not getting, for the most part, there's exceptions, but for the most part, we're not getting saturated fat. We're certainly not getting any dietary cholesterol. And regarding fiber, because everybody always says, where do you get your protein when they hear you're plant-based? Well, this is another way of looking at it. So the Institute of Medicine, this is a quote from a book that I'll talk about later. The Institute of Medicine recommends that men eat 38 grams of fiber a day and women eat 25 grams of fiber a day. Yet data shows that we only eat about 15 grams of fiber a day. We are extremely deficient in fiber. So why does nobody ever ask where you get your fiber from? Often when I find people say, well, where do you get your protein from? If I'm in that type of food, which sometimes I am, I say, where do you get your fiber from, or your antioxidants? Where do you get your phytonutrients from? You know, often people think they turn into this nutrition expert when they hear that you don't eat meat. And they can start talking about things that they don't know a whole lot about. They know a little bit. They know protein is important. They don't know why. They don't know what it's for. They don't know how much we need. They just know you need to have it. And they know that you can get it from animal foods. But for most people, don't know a whole lot beyond that, right? Do they know where these other things are coming from, where they're getting those in their diet? Perhaps not. How much protein do I need? I'll cut to the chase. Just as I said before, research has clearly shown that provided you're eating a sufficient amount of calories, you will consume enough protein. And I like to add that you should be consuming a variety of whole foods, because I imagine that you could eat enough calories of candy, but you're not going to be getting protein from candy, depending on the type of candy, I suppose. But so a sufficient variety of whole foods as well. But I know you want to know more than that, right? So as a holistic nutritionist, I don't advocate eating by the numbers for the most part, for most of my clients. So counting calories, grams of macronutrients, that kind of thing. But I recognize that it can be very helpful for you to have a guideline so you can make sure you're getting enough of what you need, especially when you're starting off in a plant-based diet. You probably have all those questions. You know, how do I know that I'm doing it right? How do I know I'm getting all the right things? So this source for this information is The Idiot's Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition by Juliana Hever, which is an excellent book, and I'll give more information about it at the end. But it's based on the World Health Organization's recommendations, so for everyone in the world. So the suggested protein intake for vegan adults, or any adult for that matter, keep in mind that this is the average adult. Things will be slightly different. Recommendations will be slightly different for whether you're very active, whether you're doing weight training. You know, things may be a little bit different. Whether you're older, it'll slightly. But basically 0.8 grams per kilogram of lean or ideal body weight per day. So to figure that out, you divide your body weight in pounds by 2.2 and multiply by 0.8. So as an example, when I talk about ideal body weight or lean body weight, that means we don't really need much protein to maintain our excess body fat. We just really don't need that much extra protein for that. We do need protein to maintain our lean body mass. So bones and muscles and tissues and organs and all of that stuff. We need protein to maintain that. So to figure out what this number would be for you, you could imagine, if you were at, like, what would a doctor tell you you should weigh, for example, given your height and your build and your amount of muscle, like what would be a good weight for you? If you had the right balance of body fat, that's the number you're using. So let's say, I think that my ideal body weight would be 135 pounds, let's say. So that's 61 kilograms. And that would mean I need 49 grams of protein in a day. So let's say, you're a bigger person, you've got a lot of muscle, you're taller. Maybe your ideal or lean body weight is about, let's say it's 180. So that's 82 kilograms. And that works out to 66 grams of protein per day. So what do you guys think about that? I sometimes hear that people find this is too much or too little. Every now and then somebody will say, no, that's exactly what I thought, and perfect, because you're ahead of curve. But if you've actually looked at nutrition info labels on certain products, certain foods, you'll probably see how easy it would be to reach those numbers in a day without a whole lot of extra work. This also works out to another way of looking at it is about 10 to 15% of your total calories should come from protein. So a gram of protein is about 4 calories, and you could calculate it that way. So this helps those people that are more active, for example, who are trying to figure out how much protein they should be consuming. Well, they may likely know how many calories they need to be consuming in a day. And then you just look at 10 to 15% of those calories should be coming from protein. So you divide that, 10 to 15%. How many calories is that? Divided by 4, that's how many grams of protein. How do you measure how many grams you're getting? Okay, so if you want to measure it, you can use any number of different like nutrient tracking apps. They have them for your phone. You can do it online if you want to do it that way. But what I'm going to show you in a moment is just sort of a little smattering of different protein amounts for average foods that you might consume. And you'll see that you probably could figure it out pretty easily. So first, I'm just going to touch on, what about kids and teens? So the position paper on vegetarian diets by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, says that appropriately planned vegan, lacto-vegetarian, and lacto-ovo-vegetarian diets satisfy nutrient needs of infants, children, and adolescents and promote normal growth. So this isn't just an opinion of mine. This is a very well-respected nutrition organization. It's one of the most respected in the world, believes this after looking at the balance of evidence that's out there in research. So from another source, Plant Powered Families by Drina Burton. She's a Canadian, she's fantastic. Here's just an average of what children of different ages might need in grams of protein per day. So it's most definitely possible. And as I say, it can become very, very easy once you get a hang of it. You know what foods you're kind of looking for in a day. It becomes very easy and it becomes second nature, so that you don't have to count any grams. And I have to say that in our culture, sometimes we think that, well, if some is good, more is better. If protein is important, if we need protein, for almost every function in the human body, then we should get as much as we can, right? Not so. More is not better when it comes to protein, believe it or not. It's not certainly the message that gets out there in the media. Why? Because excess protein can be taxing on the kidneys. And specifically, we're generally talking about excess animal protein, because excess protein that comes from whole plant foods comes with all those other things that tend to balance it out. So it comes with the vitamins and the minerals and the fiber and the antioxidants and the phytonutrients. They all come with that protein, and it tends to balance it out. Whereas animal protein usually comes in the form of meat, which is primarily protein and some fat, or in dairy products, is again protein and fat for the most part, so it's a little bit of carbohydrate. Excess animal protein, on the other hand, it can be taxing on the kidneys, it can be hard on the liver, and it can promote abnormal cell growth, meaning cancer. There's certainly a lot of research that towards excess animal protein consumption and increased risk of certain cancer. Another quote from this book that I'll refer to later, it's called Proteinaholic. He says, people whose diets are high in animal protein have significantly higher rates of chronic diseases like hypertension, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and many, many others, including cataracts, diverticulitis, diverticulosis, inflammatory bowel disease, gallbladder disorders, gout, hypertension, irritable bowel syndrome, kidney stones, and rheumatoid arthritis, to name a few. So, okay, now where do I find this protein, this magical protein that apparently counts? Keep calm, plants have protein. All whole foods contain protein. And I'm going to give you some examples of common plant foods and the total amount of protein that they consume. And I know this is little, so I'll help you. I'll read some of this out for you. I have to increase it on my screen too, with little. As I said, though, if you stay until the end, I will send you a really handy guide with food sources of key nutrients, including protein. So it'll have a list of foods, how much protein you'll find in it. Also, foods that contain, plant foods that contain iron, and those that contain calcium in higher amounts of these things. So legumes are probably the most protein-dense plant food. So we're talking about beans, chickpeas, peas, split peas, tofu, tempeh, all of those wonderful foods. So for example, tempeh, if you're not familiar with tempeh, it is soybeans that are fermented and then pressed into a block. So they're whole soybeans. It's a really great substitute or swap for chicken, for example, or where you might put meat into a meal. Tempeh is a great swap in for that. Really good in stir fries and things like that. You can grill it. It's great in sandwiches. You can make a bacon out of it. And because it's fermented, it has the added advantage that it's easier to digest, and it has other benefits that you get with fermented foods. So a cup of tempeh, cooked tempeh. So like that's, I don't know if you can see my hands. It's like this much. I can tell you I could eat a cup of cooked tempeh, not a problem. 31 grams of protein. That's a lot of protein. If you're looking at one of the recommendations on that chart before, it was like 49 grams of protein in a day. You could meet your, almost like meet about 2/3 or 3/5 of your protein requirement for the day with 1 cup of tempeh. And I assume you would be eating other things, not just that. So that's just an example. That's probably the most protein dense plant food. Lentils, 1 cup of cooked lentils is 18 grams. Chickpeas, we had chickpeas tonight. They're so delicious. 1 cup of chickpeas, 15 grams of protein. Tofu, another huge favorite in our house. 4 ounces of cooked tofu, and I have a feeling that we generally eat more than that in a serving, is 11 grams of protein. And keep in mind that you're not just having that in your meal. Like, what are you having for lunch? Oh, I'm having a cup of chickpeas. That's not going to be your whole meal. You're going to have other foods, right? So nuts are another really protein-dense plant food. And these, for example, peanuts, a 1/4 cup. So a 1/4 cup of nuts or seeds is generally considered a serving. 1/4 cup of peanuts is 9 grams. A 1/4 cup of almonds, 8 grams of protein. Seeds, hemp seeds, one of my absolute favorite foods, plant foods. So delicious, so nutrient dense. Good source of protein, absolutely. 3 tablespoons, just 3 tablespoons, not even a 1/4 cup, is 11 grams of protein. It's also a super source of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. It's a good source of fiber, iron, magnesium. It's just a nutritional powerhouse. Pumpkin seeds, roasted. So these are shelled pumpkin seeds, right? Like the green pepitas. A 1/4 cup, 8 grams of protein. Chia seeds, another favorite food of mine. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, 5 grams of protein. So not huge amounts of protein, but this is just one of the foods that you're having in your day, right? How about grains? So seitan, if you're not familiar with that, it's not Satan, it's seitan. It's also called wheat meat. It's made with vital wheat gluten, which is basically they take the gluten from wheat flour and then they mix it with water and seasonings, and they make a very chicken-like meat almost. That's why it's called a wheat meat. Really great texture, very, very much like chicken. It takes on the flavor of whatever seasoning you've put with it. Of course, not good if you're gluten-free, like if you're gluten sensitive or celiac, obviously this is not a good choice for you, but it is very protein dense. So 3 ounces of seitan is 21 grams of protein. A lot of meat alternatives or faux meats that you might find at the grocery store are made with seitan. They may not say seitan on the ingredients. It might say wheat protein or vital wheat gluten, but it's seitan. Buckwheat, another really protein dense food. 1 cup of buckwheat, 21 grams. And buckwheat is gluten-free. Let's see, quinoa, always touted as being really high in protein. It's okay, like it's sufficiently high in protein. You're not going to meet your requirements for the day by just eating quinoa because 1 cup is 8 grams, but that's significant, right? Remember that you're not just having a cup of quinoa in your day, you're going to eat other things. Probably you are going to have quinoa tonight. I had quinoa and I had chickpeas, but I had some nice red lettuce. I had shredded carrots. What else do we have? Celery, red peppers, and then a dressing made from almond butter and tamari, and it was just fantastic. So lots of different foods, lots of plant foods, so delicious, really satisfying, and full of protein, amongst other things like vitamins, minerals. You get the picture, right? Okay. Other vegetables and the amounts of protein, because it's not just legumes and grains that have protein. Spinach, a cup of cooked spinach, which isn't all that much, 5 grams of protein, not bad. A cup of cooked corn, 5 grams of protein. Broccoli, a cup of cooked broccoli, grams of protein. So you can see not super high, but these are foods that you're going to be consuming all together. If you start adding them up, you'll see that it comes up to a pretty decent amount of protein in just one meal. What happened? I lost my picture. Huh. Somehow that slide is gone. So we'll skip it. This one that you can't see, I don't know what happened because all the other slides got uploaded just fine. This just talked about spreads like tahini, 3 tablespoons of tahini, which is known for its starring role in hummus. 3 tablespoons is 8 grams of protein. Almond butter, 2 tablespoons, 7 grams of protein. Nutritional yeast, which is so front and center for so many plant-based meals, especially if you're looking for a cheesy flavor or that added savory quality to certain things like making a cashew cheese sauce, for example. Nutritional yeast, 3 tablespoons is 12 grams of protein, which is really significant because nobody uses nutritional yeast because it's high in protein. They use nutritional yeast because it tastes really good. It's amazing on popcorn. And the protein is a bonus. Spirulina, and I'm sorry you can't see this slide, but you'll get this in the handout that you get when you get that email. Spirulina, I like to talk about because people often say, oh, spirulina, it's really, really protein dense. Yes, it is, but people don't consume a whole lot of spirulina in a day. It's very intense in flavor. It's very expensive. And 2 tablespoons is 8 grams. 2 tablespoons is a lot. That's a lot of spirulina to have a day. So you're not going to be meeting your daily protein needs by just eating. Oh, you can see the slide. Well, isn't that nice? How weird is that? You guys can see the slide and I can't see it. Odd. I wonder if that happened because I had to rejoin this meeting. Okay, I'm glad you guys can see it. Yes, so I like to point that out because sometimes people get the misconception that spirulina, just by eating spirulina, they're going to be fine for protein. No, it's a nice protein bonus. There's lots of other nutrients that you get with spirulina, but it's not going to be your main source of protein. There was a question. Okay, I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that one. Okay. And just because I like visual representation, this is from Simple Happy Kitchen, which has an awesome book called Simple Happy Kitchen. And it's a really visual, like really fun, illustrated guide to plant-based nutrition. And they have free downloadable PDFs that, like if you wanted to put this on your fridge to give yourself a little bit of inspiration, you know, if you're trying to remember how much protein different foods have, this is a really cute way to look at it. So what about soy? Everybody always asks me about soy. If I don't bring it up, because I've tried sometimes not addressing the soy question, and inevitably somebody's going to bring it up. So what about soy? Well, soy is full of protein. It can be a great calcium source because tofu, when it's made, if you don't know how it's made, it's almost like making a dairy cheese where they take whole soybeans, they blend them with water, and then the soy milk. They curdle the milk. So similar to making dairy cheese, you curdle the milk. So they curdle the soy milk, and then they take the curds and they press them into a block. The medium that they use to curdle that milk usually has calcium in it. So it's just a natural way, like a natural part of the tofu making process. So tofu can be a nice source of calcium. Soy is very versatile in the kitchen. It's a great way to swap out for other animal foods in certain recipes. Silken tofu is great for cheesecake. For making cheesecake, I made amazing chocolate cheesecake using silken tofu. Tofu itself, like firm tofu, great where you would have had chicken, for example, in a stir fry, or I'll get to some other examples. Soy milk is an excellent alternative to cow's milk. So very versatile. But then the question I get is it dangerous? Well, usually why people are concerned about soy is because they are worried about the phytoestrogens that are in soy. And I don't have enough time to really get into it in great detail, but I will give you a link to a great video from Dr. Michael Greger from nutritionfacts.org, who gets into the research behind it, the science behind it. To give you a spoiler, so the video that you'll get a link for is called Who Shouldn't Eat Soy? And to spoil it, at the end of the video, he says, really, the only people that shouldn't be eating soy are those that are allergic to it. And I would add those that have a sensitivity to it. So if you have sensitivity to soy, then maybe you're allergic to it, avoid it. Otherwise, he says it's safe for everybody else. And of course, you're going to say, but what about? Well, watch the video. Dr. Greger explains it much better than I can. But the phytoestrogens in soy are associated with cancer protection, improvement in menopausal symptoms in women, increased bone density. Not usually what people think about when they think about soy, right? So please watch the video. It has to do with different receptors, and yeah, he explains it well. So there's lots of benefits to eating soy. Always choose organic or non-GMO because it is a highly genetically modified crop, but most of that crop, the genetically modified soy, gets fed to animals as animal feed. Sorry, I'm just going to address you, Carlos, straight out because it's faster. I don't know if you can, Carlos, but you could always try contacting Goodness Me about it, whoever you registered with. Sorry, Carlos is just wondering, he was just asking me a question. It's faster if I answer it this way. Okay. So most of that GMO soy is being fed to animals as animal feed. So for those that think that they're avoiding GMO soy because they don't eat soy, it could be as they could be that GMO soy in the animal foods that they're eating if they're not consuming organic animal foods. And like everything else, eat it in moderation, which is about 1 to 3 servings a day. I can say that soy is one of my favorite foods. There's so many wonderful soy foods. So this is the video that I'll send you a link for. And tofu, oh my goodness. We have to really make a concerted effort not to eat tofu all the time because we love it so much, but we try and incorporate variety. So we have it a few times a week so that we make sure that we eat other foods because variety is really important. But just another illustration from Simple Happy Kitchen. It contains all essential amino acids. It adopts the flavor of whatever it's being cooked with. So if you've ever had tofu and didn't like it, it wasn't cooked the right way. Try it again. It can be amazing. And also keep in mind that your palate will adjust to, different foods as you get used to them. If you're coming from eating lots of animal foods, a plant-based diet is going to taste different to you. And just give it time. It will adjust and things will start to taste better. All right. So let's get into some meal ideas because I want to make sure I have time to get to questions. All right. I had to throw this in there. That feeling you get when somebody tries your vegan food and admits it's delicious. It is so delicious. I remember when my father first found out that we were giving up animal foods. At the time we were vegetarian, and he felt really sorry for me. And he said that I was doing a really noble thing, that it was very selfless what I was doing. And I remember thinking that, like, yes, I'm doing it for the animals, yes, but I'll admit that if the food didn't taste good, I couldn't keep doing it. The food tastes amazing. And that's what helps keep people plant-based, is the more they explore the foods, the more they realize how there are so many more foods out there than maybe they were aware of before. And they get really excited about it. You just can't wait to have your next plant-based. So some options. What do you do with, say, beans, chickpeas, lentils? Well, chili is very easily made vegan or plant-based. I would recommend using a recipe that was designed to be vegan because if you just take the meat out of it, it could feel a little bit flat because it could be missing the umami or that savoriness that you're really looking for that meat naturally has. You can definitely get that from plant foods. You just have to know how to do it. So I would say use a recipe that is designed to be vegan, and work with that. So chili, really easy. It's mostly beans and tomatoes anyways. Bean tacos, super easy. Crispy pan-fried beans. So I'm going to be giving you guys all these recipes in that email. If you stay till the end, you'll be getting that recipe, all these recipes. Crispy pan-fried beans. The first time I made these, my husband said they were a game changer. And this was a couple of months ago that I made these for the first time. Simple. They take maximum 15 minutes, and so delicious. You could eat a whole can of beans without even thinking of it. They're so good. So you will love that recipe. Definitely check it out. What about tofu? Well, you can cube it and use it in a stir fry. It's best if you can marinate it ahead of time, but otherwise, if it gets to simmer in a sauce, that'll be great because it'll absorb the flavors in that sauce. Scrambled tofu is probably our favorite tofu meal that we have. Very, very easy, very tasty. You could mix it with black beans and some other veggies, have it in a breakfast burrito. Tofu veggie kebabs are one of our favorite summer grilling recipes. We just love them. So delicious. Once again, you're going to want to marinate because that's where the flavor comes from. Otherwise, it'll be okay, but it's the marinade that really gives it that delicious savory quality. And this is one of my favorite little comics here. Oh, great. Who invited the herbivore? And the brontosaurus said, I brought hummus. When all else fails, there's always hummus, right? And I'm always happy if I go to a party or a barbecue and they've got hummus. I know that I can eat, and I love hummus. So what about snacks? Well, chia seed pudding made with soy milk. Great source of protein, great source of calcium and omega-3 fatty acids. It can taste like the most indulgent dessert, but it's super healthy for you. Toasted nuts and seeds, very easy. You can season them if you want, add a little bit of unrefined salt. Roasted chickpeas, those crispy pan-fried beans that I showed, you could eat those that way too, just as a snack if you're looking for something, an alternative to chips. Tempeh bacon, you can have it on something or you can have it on its own, really yummy. And veggies and hummus, of course. Veggies in any bean dip, and bean dips are very simple to make on your own.